The recording. And so this is Market 690, Module 5. Excuse me, and as I said, I'm not turning on my camera, so you can't see me because I look so awful. So you're almost halfway done. At the end of week 5, we're at the halfway point, so we're almost there. So what we're going to look at today are some reminders, a review of Module 4, preview of Module 5 that includes writing papers, APA requirements, and best practices. So, just as a reminder, faculty have to be online 5 days. The last check-in for me on Sunday is around 10 p.m. If you have questions, you should ask them earlier than Sunday night, because if I go on at 10 o'clock and you have a question at 10:01, the likelihood of my seeing it is probably not possible. And any kinds of issues and problems you have should be brought up earlier than Sunday night. And reminder about feedback. It is important to not just look at the points, because there are times when even if you earned all the points, I still have provided you with some feedback on things that you might still be able to do better. So don't just look at the points, read the feedback. There's a lot of information that you could find in there. Why is paraphrasing better than quoting? Quoting, you're using exact words. Paraphrasing, you're putting it into your own words, and the same with summarizing. If what you do is provide a lot of quotes, you have shown me that you can find quotes. If you paraphrase or summarize, you show me that you can apply or analyze those quotes. So that's why it's so much better to paraphrase than to quote, because you're putting it into your own words and you're demonstrating that you understand the concepts. Reminders. Address all requirements comprehensively. Demonstrate an understanding of course concepts by using depth and details, application and analysis, and sharing insights. Use relevant sources. Blogs are not relevant sources. Most blogs are written by people who are more self-proclaimed experts than anyone else saying that they're experts. So that is not a good source. The other sources that you need to be careful about are the sites that are selling their services. Sites selling services are not providing you with a balanced look at a topic. They're providing you with how they want you to look at it. They want you to buy into the way that they do things. Can we just make sure all the microphones are off so there's no background noise? Thank you. There were several sources this week that were used that were blogs and sites selling services. So those are not good sources. The best sources are your business journal articles. All right, so let's look at participation. Still hearing background noise. Your postings have to be substantive. You want depth, you want details, you want insights. You want to do more than quote. That doesn't show anything. Write in paragraphs and use white space. One long paragraph is very hard to read and hard to follow. So your postings are much better if you use white spaces. Use sources. The text for this class is Corneliuson. I think that's how you say the name. It's a 2014 publication. If you're writing according to Corneliuson, you write that and then the date is in parentheses. If it's a citation, you use Corneliuson 2014. You add the page, paragraph, or chapter number if it's a direct quote. And use sources more than just finding quotes. Apply and analyze information over reporting. Reporting does not tell me you understand anything. It tells me that you can regurgitate what you read. Develop insightful conclusions and review the definition of substantive, which was in the Module 2 announcement message. Post early in the week. You have no idea what the end of the week is going to bring. And if you post early in the week, it allows you for more time to do assignments. This week there was not a paper due, but next week there is. So if you wait until Sunday to do everything, you're going to run out of time. And it's been my experience that people who post early in the week tend to get higher grades because they have focused just on posting at the beginning of the week and papers at the end of the week. All right, so for Module 4, you had to pick two messages, an internal and an external. You were supposed to use classmates' messages from Module 3. Several people used their own message from Module 3. You needed to use a classmate's. You were supposed to cut and paste the message into your posting and then discuss brand, legal, and compliance implications. It's important that you note that the brand, legal, and compliance implications show up on the final paper. They need to be part of your final paper. So save whatever somebody might have provided you with brand, legal, and compliance implications. And you had to review one internal and one external message for your engagement postings. Okay, Module 5. This is a confusing one because it has a different due date. You have to have posted, you still have a couple of hours. You're supposed to post a message on Monday. You want the message to be about discrimination, and that can be gender, race, age, lifestyle, religion, and there are other things that are also discrimination. You want to write an internal and an external message. You are going to decide if your message is offensive or defensive. And offensive is not going on the offense about someone who said something bad about you. Offensive is proactive, it's positive. In other words, we have a new maternity policy. Could be a positive message, offensive. Defensive is reactive. If the bad news has already gotten out and you're accused of any kind of discrimination, that has to be a defensive or reactive strategy. Make sure you review the rubric for Module 3. The other thing you're going to do is claim someone whose messages you want to review. Do that right away so you can get the ones that you want, because once a person has one person saying they want to review it, a second person can't do it until everybody has a reviewer. You're going to post the review by Thursday and make sure you review the peer guidelines rubric, because that will tell you what you need to do in developing a review by Thursday. So your first thing is that today, and I did see that there were a lot of postings. I haven't really looked at it yet because I have been grading all day. So you post two messages by today, one internal, one external. They can both be offensive. They can both be defensive. You can mix it up. You can make a combination. And claim who are the two people or two messages. You can do both messages from one person that you're going to review. And you're going to post a message review by Thursday using the peer review guidelines. Papers. We're going to look at writing, citations, headings, references, sources, best practices, and a sample reference listing. APA does not allow the use of you, your, first person, or contractions. APA does not allow the use of you, your, first person, or contractions. The only time you can use it, if it's in a quote, you can use it. But if you're paraphrasing, don't use it. Make sure you paraphrase rather than quote, and that's for papers and postings. Avoid superlatives. Superlatives are rarely true and difficult to prove. You would not say this company never has and never will. First of all, if they did it once, you can't say never. And how can you predict the future? How are you going to know they're never going to do it? You can't say everyone understands. You don't know what other people understand. You can say everyone will get the message because that's concrete, but understand, you don't know. You don't want to say that all people love Apple products. Well, you know what? There are people who don't have electricity. I'm guessing they don't love Apple products. And when an Apple phone, a 10, now costs as much as some people earn in a year, I don't think they love it. Avoid very. It is an overused and unnecessary word. If something is important, it doesn't become any more important if you put very in front of it. If you put it in front of the word unique, I don't even know what that means. Since unique is already one of a kind, how could it be very unique? Try to avoid phrases like in order to, use to. Other phrases to avoid: due to the fact that, use since, nowadays, or in this day and age, just use today. So try to use as few words as possible to get to the point. Avoid generalities. You don't want to say the entire world because you don't know. And you also don't want to say, I have a great idea, because maybe not everybody would think it's a great idea. And why are you evaluating your own ideas? Check the use of apostrophe. If it's from, if we're talking about a company's value statement, it's with apostrophe S. If you're talking about that many companies are doing something, it's IES. If you're talking about many companies and it's possessive, the apostrophe comes after the S. Avoid unnecessary phrases when it comes to as well as. Try to avoid ending sentences with a preposition. I know that's sometimes tough, but you have to see if you can't reword it. Try to avoid that. Avoid rhetorical questions. That's not really a good thing to do. If you are writing according to something, you're writing it according to the author, not according to the publication. So according to James Smith, then the year of the publication, not according to Forbes magazine, unless there's no author. And check for wordos, cliches, and redundancies, all of which I gave you last week in the slides. So you might want to go back and look at the module 4 slides, because I defined and showed you wordos, cliches, and redundancies. Use last name only and publication dates in citations. So you would use Smith, 2018. Do not use the download date for the publication date. If there is no date, you use N period, D period, not NA, not the download date. N period, D period means there's no date. And so it's all about the publication date, not the download date. And for the most part, you should be looking at finding articles that have a publication date. The Small Business Chronicle is often a good source, but unfortunately, a lot of their articles don't have dates, which means you have no idea if it is in fact up to date. Add the page paragraph to citations for quotes. If you have only 2 authors, green and black, you have to put both authors in every citation. When we say that your references need to be listed alphabetically, you do not change the order to black and green. You use green and black because that's what's on the book, and that has meaning. It means the person named is the one who did the most work. If you have 3 authors, for the first citation, you list all 3, the last name and publication date. After the first citation, you can use the first author's name, let's go back to Smith, and then et al, E-T-A-L period, which means and others. But you have to put all of the authors in the first citation. Use a citation for anything that's new to you, that it's something you read and didn't know about until you read it, something you paraphrased, something you summarized. In other words, if you didn't write it or you didn't know it, you must cite it. Headings. Use at least 3 main centered headings. The introduction paragraph does not use introduction as a heading. Content, each topic, make that a heading, and then you want to have a summary or conclusion. Develop 3 to 5 word headings based on the topic. Don't use directions as a heading, and capitalize all the main words in the heading. In other words, you're not going to capitalize in, the, at. Make sure that if you're using a level 2 heading, you used a level 1 heading. If you're using a level 3 heading, you used a level 2 heading. You can't start with a level 2 or 3. Level 1 is main centered. Level 2 is in the margin, and they're all bold. All right, so your paper for Module 5, Milestone 3. You're using your selected company, and you are focusing on a discrimination communication. like race, gender, religion, age, lifestyle. There are other discriminations. I just put those down. You're developing internal and external messages that are offensive or defensive. And this is for the paper, so you have to include all the critical elements. So here are the critical elements. Communication context, I would use that as my first heading, which is an overview. You're going to talk about whether you're using an offensive, defensive, or combination approach. The communication need, which is the stakeholder issues that need to be addressed. The internal communication, you're going to look at type and purpose. Is it educational, informational, persuasive? And type, is it a memo? Is it an email? Is it an intranet? Target audience is you have to explain and justify, and then you include the draft communication. External communication, same thing, type and purpose. Educational, informational, persuasive, and then dissemination. Is it going to be email, social media, a press release? If you're going to do a press release, please use the format that I shared with you previously. I can't remember when it went out. You're going to have the target audience. It's an explanation and a justification. You're going to share your external draft communication. And your final heading is the conditions communication strategy, which is your summarizing to discuss alternatives considered and justification. So this is what's required. So what I did was I tried to create the headings for you. And I did share with you a sample paper that had filler type and just used the cover page, the headings, the citations, and the references as real type. So I would start with communication need, which is not bolded, as a main heading. Then I would use communication need. You bold after the first heading. My next heading would be internal communication. And then I would, in the margin, type and purpose, target audience, draft communication. The other thing you can do with a draft communication is put it in an appendix, and you might say, see Appendix A for draft communication. External communication, type and purpose, target audience. Draft communication could be see Appendix B for external draft communication. Conditions, communication strategy, and references. And the conditions communication strategy is basically your summary. So this is the way I would do the paper. These are the headings I would use. That makes it clear that you've covered everything, and it helps you to make sure you've covered everything, and you basically have outlined your paper when you do this. And the headings that the sample paper that I sent you last week basically is the same as this. So what you could do is take that sample paper, take out all the filler text, and your paper's already outlined for you. Use the Shapiro library to do your research. I showed you last time how to do an advanced search. So if you're still not clear about how to use the library, it was in the module 4 video, so you can go back and look at it or go back and look at the slides, which had a lot of screenshots for the library. Use business journal articles, and you can use their website, businessweek.com, fastcompany.com, fortune.com, forbes.com, inc.com, wsj.com, and Harvard Business Review, HBR, is .org. So that's why I put that there, since that's a little different. Do not use Google to find work. What happens when you use Google? You tend to get into 3 things: blogs, website selling services, and purchase paper sites, none of which are okay as sources. So don't Google, because page 1 is filled with blogs, website selling services, and purchase paper sites, none of which are acceptable. Focus on finding credible and reliable information. You can do that by going to the library. You could do that by going straight to businessweek.com or fortune.com. References and citations must match. So if you have the author Smith on the reference page, when you get to the citation, don't use Forbes, use Smith. They must match. If you have something on the reference page, it must be cited in the paper. They cannot list a source as a reference if it's not cited. Use the publication date, not the download date. Use N period, D period if there is no publication date. Most websites, if you scroll all the way down, will give you the date the website was last updated. Write titles of books and journals in italics. Do not use the words volume, issue, and pages, and I'll show you that in a second. And list your references alphabetically, but do not change the order of the authors. Do not use Google unless it's a starting point. Avoid websites selling services. Avoid blogs. Be careful about cheat sites. Dictionaries and encyclopedias are okay for high school work, but not for graduate level work. And be very careful of purchase paper sites. You can't always tell what's a purchase paper site. Best practices. Go beyond reporting. Apply and analyze information. Demonstrate your understanding of the topic. Use appropriate sources to support key points. And again, that is not blogs, site selling services, or purchase paper sites. And read aloud before submitting. Other sites that are not good sites to use are what I call the shortcut sites, things like marketing91.com, marketingadvantage.com. Those sites are not always credible or reliable. Sometimes they are, but it's not consistent. So be real careful of those kinds of sites too. And I think I mentioned this to you before. It's really important to read it aloud before you submit, because when you read aloud, you read what you actually wrote rather than what you think you wrote, which is what you do when you read silently. I have shared this with you before, but this is important. Make sure you use the 4C filter on your paper. Is it clear? Can I follow your thoughts, and is it well organized? Concise, do you make the point without unnecessary words and phrases? Comprehensive, have you addressed all the requirements? And cogent, is your information based on evidence, AKA sources? Okay, so here's a sample reference listing. You do not say what kind of a source something is on the reference page. I just broke it up this way to help you. So a website with no author, I use Apple. There was no date, so I use N period, D period, and I give where I retrieved it from. A website with an author, I use the author's name, I use the date, I give you the title, I give you the journal, and then I give you the retrieved information. An article from a journal. You have the author's name, the date, the title of the article, Harvard Business Review is the publication. And what you can't see is that I have used here the volume number is in italics. Next to it in parentheses is the volume, the issue number, and then after it are the page numbers, and you don't use the words volume, issue, or pages. Volume is in italics, issue is in parentheses, then there's a comma, and you just list the page inclusive without saying pages. Here's a book. Title of the book, Harvard Business Review. A textbook, Kinnicky and Williams. Here's the title, 7th edition, and I've got the location, and at the end of the line, it shows you, I think that this is a McGraw-Hill publication. Article from a journal website, author, date, title, Harvard Business Review, and once again, the URL. Here's another book. Title is in parentheses, New York, New York, and it was a Penguin Portfolio publication. Do not say what kind of source it is. This was just for demonstration purposes, so you could see how different sources are done. Read instructor postings. I've been doing announcements. I've been doing emails. There's a lot of information provided, so make sure you read it. Make sure you read your feedback, not just your score, so you can understand how and why points were lost and what you can do better or differently next time. Here's the good news. There are still 650 points to earn, or 65%. So even if you're a little bit behind, 650 points, you can make it up. The final paper is 350 points. So do the best you can moving forward, and if you're not doing as well as you like, you probably can catch up with 650 points still at stake. Ask for help, not because you are weak, but because you want to remain strong. Sometimes the questions are complicated, but the answers are simple. Okay, so I'm going to go back, see if I can get back to the chat. And I also want to get back to, there we go. Okay, so there's the chat. Oh, we have more. Let's see. We've got Amy, DeJandra, Kelly, Elise, and Nicole. Good. So what questions do you have?
Again, for me, the PowerPoint was very insightful and answered questions that I had prior to seeing it. So I'm feeling as though I'm in a good place.
Is that Amy?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? Any other concerns about what's due this week? I know that that Monday deliverable is a pain in the neck. And that was created by the school, not by me. So if you don't like it, please, I know I don't like it either.
Could I, this is Amy, Dr. Audrey, can I ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
Do you know if that will happen again this course?
No, it's the only time.
Excellent, okay.
Anything else? Questions or concerns?
No.
Can you all hear me?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm not sure if you all can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Okay, I wasn't even sure. I didn't even know. I don't know how to work this. But the slides were very informative, and I'm so mad that I didn't realize you were sending emails. But this was very helpful.
Good.
I really appreciate it.
Anyone else have any comments?
No.
As
Right, so-
always, thank you. We appreciate it. It was
Yeah,
very
thank you.
It looks like there's a message in the chat.
Milestone 3 is due in Module 5, correct, yes. That's the paper on discrimination using basically the same format as the Module 2 milestone, or the Module 3 Milestone 2. Okay, I'm going to stop